Hello and welcome to another DevFest collaboration 2023. So happy to have you here. So happy to have our guest. And wanted to remind everybody to make sure you're checking out the DevFest calendar. You'll find the link below to see where DevFests are happening near you and highly encourage you to attend. Most of these are free or nearly free, and they're an amazing opportunity to get hands-on tech, networking, and be part of this really amazing community that's sponsored by GDGs, which are Google developer groups, and all are welcome. They're tech focused, and whether you're in the tech industry, you want to be in the tech industry, or as we all are finding out, that just tech infiltrates every aspect of our lives. And today we're going to learn about fashion. I'm really excited about this. And that's kind of my plug to get out there and check out the in-person DevFest. There's also a few hybrid events, and we are here doing DevFest collaboration as an online event through YouTube. So we'll have different guests kind of coming to us throughout the season, which we're so excited about. So today, I will now turn it over to our fantastic guest who's got a great presentation for us.
Hi, everybody, and thanks so much, Philippa, to having me at the DevFest Collaboration 2023. So very happy about this.
So all right, I'm going to get the screen over here. So we've got our topic today, generative AI in fashion, the case of African wax. All right.
Great. So let's do it. So yes, my presentation is on fashion. So I'm Christelle Scharff. A little bit about me. I'm a professor of computer science. I'm a Google Women Techmaker ambassador. And a little about me also about that can in fact put the context also of this presentation. I lived on 4 continents, so I love different culture, different countries, etc. And that's why my talk is about, in fact, fashion in Africa in particular. And I have a PhD in computer science and symbolic AI in particular. And at that time, I was doing proofs of theorems. I love tech. I think it's a super exciting time in tech, especially with AI. I love New York City. I love to travel. And of course, I love fashion. So the work I will present is also a collaboration with Dr. Batula, Dr. Kalima, and with Samyak and that I have on my previous slide. So what I will talk about is a little about first why this work, why I was interested in focusing on African fashion. I will give some technical background on what is GAN and StyleGAN in particular, because that's what is used in this work. I will talk about the different experiments that were done for the generation of African patterns, African wax patterns. I will also talk about the validation with Senegalese fashion designers, and then conclude and future work and questions.
I love it. I'm excited.
Thank you. So I named this slide exploration because I think in any kind of AI project, it's really an exploration. There are many experiments to be done. So the question I really focused on with my collaborator was how to generate AI, how to use generative AI to create African wax patterns. So we looked at also at how can different training approaches manipulate design aspects like color, patterns, texture, because we want to have to generate different things, different styles, etc. But on another aspect also, the broader impact of the work is how to bridge community and target global problems. Because there are lots of problems in the world. And lots of the times the problems that are tackled are let's say, more European, American problems. So I decided to focus on Africa because I live there and I have been working there for a long time. So also where this idea of looking at African wax pattern came from, it came in fact from a project I noticed in 2018, the Little Black Dress. So the project was about generating design for little black dress, and it's like a Chanel little black dress is about every woman should have should be elegant and have a little black dress. So it's a summum of elegance to have this black dress. So they focused on this problem, and they generated different designs, and then of course a designer or a tailor saw the dress. So after that, I got the idea, I want to work on generating African wax patterns. And it took like a long time, like 4 years to work on that problem. I was super lucky to have great collaborators to make that happen. So what is in fact wax? So African wax is that traditional, colorful fabric that you probably have seen on pictures and from Africa. And it's in fact, as you can see, it's very colorful. It's symmetrical. There are lots of geometry also in it. So there are different, and it carries also some symbols, for example, for particular festivals, for particular times of life, marriages, birth of a child, etc. And there are like different types of patterns, like in different countries, Nigeria, Senegal, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, etc. And the name wax comes from like the process that is used to put wax on it, and it makes it seem shiny and also more rigid. And just to notice, it's a pattern also that the wax patterns are for women and men. So what is, in fact, how did we go about generating these patterns? So we focused our work, of course, on GAN. So GAN, it's an unsupervised learning technique. And if you look on this slide, in fact, a GAN, it trains two models. One is a generator, the generative model that captures the data distribution, and the other one is called the discriminative model that estimates the probability that a sample came from the training data. So to evaluate, so the GAN will generate lots of images, and we want to know, in fact, sometimes we want to know also if how do we know that an image is the image we want to achieve, in fact? So when we do classical machine learning, for example, where we have a classification problem, we are looking at metrics such as accuracy. So what's the accuracy of, is it a picture of a cat or a dog or so on? But here we're generating an image, and how can we evaluate also if the image we get is the image we want? The image, is it a correct image? Is it representing a cat? Is it representing a dog, etc.? So for that, we have an index or metric called FID, Fréchette Inception Distance. So it's a metric that evaluates the quality and diversity of the generated image, in fact, in the GAN. So basically what we want to do also is generate some FID that are low. In fact, a lower FID suggests that the generating image is what we want to get, in fact, with respect to appearance and statistical properties. So that's for the context of the GAN, but then also what we use was something called StyleGAN. So StyleGAN is it's still a GAN, but it permits, in fact, to add some style to the generated image. So we apply a style. We can apply a style with different strengths. We can even mix style. So a GAN, a traditional GAN on the left is like much more simpler than what is happening in a style GAN. So the StyleGAN introduce, in fact, modification in particular to the generator model, and it generates results that are quite amazing, in the sense that the images are of a good quality, huge resolution, etc. So a little more about the StyleGAN. Here it's an example to create faces with different levels of style. And as you can see, they are like a learning from the separate aspect of style, including core style, middle style, and fine style. So if you want, like, you can like play with the hairstyle, the face shape, but then also you can play with the facial features, the eyes, and otherwise you can play with the color scheme, etc. And all of these are independent, in fact. That's what also is very interesting. So StyleGAN, there are lots of different refinement of StyleGAN. So for example, we use StyleGAN 2, StyleGAN 2 ADA, and StyleGAN 3 in this work, but StyleGAN 2 was introduced to reduce, in fact, in the generated images, there are some water droplet artifacts that appear. So that's one refinement of StyleGAN. We also use StyleGAN 3 that address, in fact, image rotation and translation challenges. And we also use StyleGAN 2 ADA, because also in our case, we use our own data set that we had to create. And StyleGAN 2 ADA is good to improve training with limited data. And ADA means adaptive discriminatory augmentation. So after this background on what we wanted to do, it's like, let me present you the real project we did. So first, we created a data set of around 1,000 images. So it's a small data set, of course, with respect to what is used by models like DALL-E and so on. But we use that model, data set. So it's a set of 1,000 images that we collected, in fact, from the VLISCO website. I forgot to say that the VAX patterns, in fact, they are particularly, in fact, in the VAX fabric. You can buy that everywhere in Africa, but it's produced, in fact, particularly in the Netherlands. So VLISCO is the most popular website for buying VAX fabric, and so we asked them, can we use the images of the web, and they they told us yes, but not for commercial purposes. So we did that, and so here you have some example of VAX patterns from VLISCO. As you can see, you have flowers. You can have also here more monuments and any kind of geometrical shapes, etc. So we use these 1,000 images, and we did some pre-processing. We had to remove the padding, remove the watermarks, and etc. And we did some normalization, and we generated our first patterns, and that's what we obtained. So we used StyleGAN to ADA. We trained StyleGAN with some, of course, customization, and before that, there were lots of the other experiments, but then after, this one was like the first time we got something that we were like kind of happy about. So we got these patterns, so blue and gray patterns, and we got a FID score of 79.68, which is not super good, but we were happy with what we generated. So working with a data set of 1,000 images, and you see that it's already 47 hours of computation. So it was, however, like good for us to get a hold on how to generate the model, what to do, etc. But afterward, and because the images on that data set were not of higher resolution or high resolution, we decided, okay, now we need to have more data and data of better quality, such that we will generate like patterns with more interesting texture. And also what we noticed is we generated too many blue and green images because our data set was not diverse enough in terms of colors. So we created another data set, and that data set because we did not have the 5,000 images, we created the dataset using DALL-E, where we use different prompts for generating these images. So it was like, oh, give me patterns with fruit images, give me a pattern with flowers. So African wax textile pattern with fruit design, etc. So we used prompt engineering. And we capture various shapes, color, and object on it, on the images. And so here also we did some pre-processing. We did some data augmentation by applying different orientation changes, adding some pixel information and feature, making some geometrical transformation, adding noise, etc. So we had our 5,000 images data set, and then we used StyleGAN free, and we got also very interesting patterns. And at that time, it was the FID became also much more smaller and interesting. So we got a FID of 22.44. And here are 5 of the images we generated. But in fact, we are not training the model for 188 hours and looking at what we get, but we're observing how the model is evolving. So at different time, we have snapshots of images that are generated by the model, and we look, oh, are we going in the right direction? If not, we stop the experiment and we change parameters, and we try to understand why we need to change, what are the issue, and we go on like this. So these 5 images are like what we were very happy in generated, and what we used in fact in our real life scenario, because also one important aspect of this project that, okay, we have a model, we're generating things, but now let's print the fabric. So we reprinted different fabrics. Here I have some other, like the one you just saw on here. So that's this one. We created some bags that we have here. Always happy to show the bags, etc. And so they were created in Africa with Senegalese artisans. One of the biggest challenge was that in the images that are generated, like when you want to print fabric, you need repetition. So we did not have as much repetition. So we needed to add a phase where we had to use some Photoshop on the images, in fact. But maybe in the future, we are looking, in fact, at what can we do about that, but also we can use maybe some AI tools to, on the top of what we generate, to be able to print the fabric in more automatically, I would say. So also, I think it's important to have a process that involve, in fact, subject matter experts. So for us, we ask African designers to tell us what did they think about the patterns that were generated. So we selected some patterns, and we had either it was face-to-face or we had a survey, and we asked them, what is your first impression about what is generated? Does it look like a wax for you? What anomaly did you see? What would you use the wax for? And which one was their favorite? So in general, they were very satisfied. They were, in terms of the anomalies, they said symmetry. They wanted to see more symmetry, more repetition. And sometimes they said it lacks crispness and clarity in the design. But they thought it looks like African wax. Their favorite was, in fact, it was the green one. That was their favorite. We only had like 5 designers for now, but they told us that's a favorite that we have. That's their favorite. So conclusion of this work. So technically, yes, we obtained the best result for, of course, the larger data set with StyleGAN free. We are doing like even a new experiment, in fact, because we want more to be able more to compare the different things we did. we thought it was super important to involve human in the process, like the designers. Maybe also we should involve also some people who are in the pattern creations. We want to look at refinements of the style in terms of geometry, symmetry, but also adding symbols, so more like mixing styles. And we're looking at, in fact, after looking at StyleGAN, we want to look at diffusion models, because diffusion models have emerged as a powerful new family of generative AI models. But if you look at this picture, it explains what it does. So it's, in fact, it destroys a training data set, and then it learns to recover it by some magic, I would say. So as we did a lot of experiment with StyleGAN, now we're looking more at using this kind of methodology. So this project, not only on the technical side, is interesting, but it's very interesting, I think, on the human aspect, on the broader impact also. We looked at a problem that is a problem that target African fashion, and it's also for us a way of bridging different communities. It can be used by, so this kind of tool could be used by anybody who is in fashion, wants to generate new patterns, wants to customize, personalize fabric, etc. So it has lots of potential. Yes, that's what I wanted to say about this generative AI African fashion project. Thank you for your attention. So this is my email, and yes, made with AI.
I love this. This is fantastic. And now I have questions.
Sure.
There's so much potential here. And I mean, some of the questions are very specific, some of them are very broad. I actually want to just go back to, because I'm at the beginning of learning about machine learning and deep learning, as my studies are in geospatial data science. And so obviously there's many applications with images and with the structured data of machine learning and the unstructured data of uh, for deep learning. But I'm still at the very beginning of this journey. And so just give the broader definition of GAN, because I heard it was sort of generative
adversarial network.
Yes, so and so the word adversarial, that definitely, how does that fit into the definition? How does that get its name?
You have two networks working together. So you have one that is like generating. The other one is saying, is it fake or is it not fake? So the discriminative model. So that's why, in fact, we say adversarial, because there's this fight between is it fake or is it real? I would say in like the intuition behind it. I hope that's helpful.
That's okay. That's super helpful. Now, the next question is just this, we talk about the bridging of cultures and communities, and how do you see this? And you've obviously made a case for that, but just project this as we go forward to what those possibilities can look like for greater international collaboration. And this also speaks to your own experience living in 4 continents and having such a diverse experience of language and culture and people.
So I think there's a lot of advances already. Before we were saying like maybe it's still true, but the language that is the most focused on, it's like it's English, but there are also so many other languages. So it just that I think the type of problems is huge. There are like tons of different problems we can target based on like everybody experience. You're seeing always the world in through a particular lens. So I think everybody needs to also open their way of thinking, also look at what is happening everywhere, and collaborate. In fact, especially also with researcher, with professional from other context, in fact, and like the synergy, I think then it's like it's amazing. I'm not sure I completely answer the question, but yeah, I think I really love collaboration. I love looking at problems that are not the usual suspects sometimes, and looking at I mean, I did some other project on African fashion in classification, for example, because we're talking a lot about like fashionista also as a benchmarking instrument, but fashionistas only recognize like Western fashion, I would say, and we need to be inclusive, and so fashion is just one use case, like to open the discussion. And but if we ask fashionists, can you recognize a sari from India? It will say no, it's a dress. So we really need to be more inclusive, and there's a lot of talk, of course, about trustworthy, ethical, responsible AI, but there are like so many aspects to look into it with. And use case is one way to address the issue.
Yes, I see so many opportunities for global collaboration and just collaboration in general. I feel like I mean, not I feel like, I mean, you're in computer science, and I know that this has been in the works for many years, many decades. But as from my point of view, as someone, I would say in the more in the general public, it's only come into our line of vision. We'd heard about AI and machine learning for a while, but I think it was, at least for me, that first experience with ChatGPT and Bard and starting to I haven't used Dolly yet, but I used Adobe Firefly, and so starting to have those opportunities to really sort of see the potential, and now wanting to get more into machine learning and with data set analysis and imagery analysis. But that said, speaking of the future of the artist, how do you think that this impacts for the better and for the not better in terms of how artists and creatives should be adapting? Because this is, you can't put this back in the box, and yet it seems to, on one level, replace the artist, but as you were saying, some of it was augmented and photoshopped, and so it seems like there's a place for the artist as well.
Yes, I don't see AI as replacing completely the artist. I'll see it as I see that AI can so much, yes, help in the process. So there's this term of now augmented the human, but I think it's really how I see it. Like it's another tool. So it's I mean, like the artist. I'm not an artist. I'm really a computer scientist, but I see the artists. They put their soul. They put really very personal things into what they are doing. So now the computer will, or the model will not do that, but still the artist can be involved at different steps and say, oh, I want this like this, I want a little bit of that. And I see that with style, you can like adding some I want a little more of this color, I want a little more of texture, and so on. So I don't think I really see that as the artist is supported with AI. And
I think that's just important. And we saw the strike that happened in Los Angeles with the writers, and now the actors are going through it, just saying, we want to know how to use these tools and work collaboratively with them, but we don't want the studios necessarily thinking that they can replace us with them. And also just the art that the language models and image models are trained on is also, I think, part of looking at, like you had said, here is the library of images we used. We had permission to use these images. So yeah, can you touch on just a little bit about that sourcing of the data, of these images, of the term that comes to mind is more like data governance, but to sort of the ethics that are involved in the data that we're choosing to train these models on.
So it's a very, very good question, and it's very important that yes, from the start, the process needs to be ethical, and the use of data is like also at the center. So for the first experiment, yes, we asked Bilsco, can you give us access to the images? So they told us no commercial use. It's for research, so we are not doing anything commercial for that. But then also we did not have enough images, so we went to DALL-E, which we can use for free. But lots of the problem we are tackling, in fact, in our research, we are building our own data set. And sometimes it's data set of even of voice that we need to record. And because we are in the university also, we need to go through a process called IRB, Institutional Review Board. So if we record someone, we have to have the permission. It goes through a complete process. So probably because no, not because, but I mean, we are really looking at this from every angle in the responsibilities. The data set, I mean, one of my favorite articles is Data Sheet for Data Set by Gebru, in like, why are you designing this data set? What's the purpose of using it, and all the questions, all the checklists that varies for using it. So first from the data set perspective, then the model you're using, and then also at the end, involving people who can tell you also. There's an evaluation, I think there's a technical evaluation of a model, but there's also the evaluation by the expert. So for us, it's fashion. So we involve fashion designers and so on. But if it will be like, something on another language, we need to involve like people of another language, etc. So it needs, the process from the data set to the end needs to have lots of guards, in fact, to stay ethical.
I agree with that. I think that the guardrails and the input and the oversight and the management of it is so important. And I think that that's but I think that's the reason why I feel like DevFest and Women Tech Makers and being ambassadors, I feel is an opportunity to begin these conversations, because there's a very, like, in your role as a researcher, as an academic, in my role as a student, but there's a larger public interaction. For example, President Biden just signed into law an executive order saying, hey, we need to pay attention here. Like, this stuff is infiltrating our society and it's impacting every citizen, not only in the United States but around the world, and we should be leading these rules and regulations and compliance and ethics around it, so that society moves forward, not backwards, with these technical developments, and that it helps people and doesn't harm people. And so I feel like there's, these talks, and why I feel like things like DevFest are really important, is they can help developers go to the next level, and people who identify as being in tech, but they're also open access to everyone to get up to speed on what is the conversation, what is the zeitgeist, where are these things going, what are these things, and where there's opportunities for entrepreneurs and for businesses to engage and adapt. There is commercial use to many of these things. There's also a personal use to many of these things. I notice how much I now sort of co-pilot my whole life with AI tools. I don't even think about how much I use them. And actually, to the point where I actually was afraid I was going to get in trouble in an assignment, because I didn't even think about the fact that I was using AI, and that the school was like, we got to be careful, like, how you use it, how you don't use it. So even in academics, I'm sure you see that conversation happening at the administration level and department levels for how are students using AI or not using AI.
Yeah, that's completely correct. Yes, that's a big discussion that is happening right now. on use in humanities, in business, in coding, etc. So the university are facing either, there was many articles on banning completely the use of ChatGPT or embracing it in a certain way. Like every technology, I think we need to look into this carefully, but we need to embrace, but just educate also on what can be done, what can't be done in the context of, doing a homework, doing an assignment, etc.
Yep. I definitely, it gives me more confidence as I code, knowing that if I get stuck, rather than sort of leaning just on my readings or on a video, I can kind of ask it a question like, how do I help me? Or it
It's a
helps me
it's a
organize my.
permanent tutor. Yeah, it's a permanent tutor. So you have always someone you can ask, or you don't even ask. You get the help without completely asking. So that's also great.
Yes. But at the same time, as my professor says, make sure you're also writing your own code so you really learn how to write the code, not just copy and pasting it from any source.
Yeah.
And the same thing is that in certain areas, I have enough experience and I am a subject matter expert that I can coach it when I know it gives me a wrong answer. And I think that's something people need to be aware of, that the answer is not always right. It does hallucinate. And if you can talk to it about a subject that you know a lot about, you can start to see its gaps and its weaknesses and its strengths. But I think if you just go to it for things that you don't know and you rely on it 100%, you're missing what you're missing. So I do feel like if you're new to AI and playing with these tools, have a conversation with it about things that you know really well, where you can start to edit it. One of the other things, just as a general AI point, is that I was able to ask Google about myself in the generative AI that they use when you do a Google search now. And Google comes back and says, we can't answer that. They do not give personal information. And yet I went to Bing AI, to Bing Chat, and I asked about myself. And it was very interesting how much information Bing was able to give me about myself, about things I've done creatively, things I've done, my work history, my academic history. It was very thorough. And some of it was incorrect, to the point that I wanted to report it with a screenshot saying, this is not accurate. Like, this is not. So I think that we should all sort of be aware of the things that are coming out about us and making sure that we're managing what the information that it knows about us. And I actually think that Google has just said, no, we're not going to go there. We're not going to divulge personal information. But I was quite surprised how much Bing and OpenAI go down that road. Do you have any sort of experience with that?
No, I did not. I should look myself up also to see what are the answer of the different tools. I think there's a lot of experimentation to do to understand the tools, and what is what they are giving, like wrong information or not wrong or right information, but also we need really to tell, like students and young kids also, like yes, don't believe everything, because it was like, don't believe everything you see on online, but now it's even worse with ChatGPT, yes, and all these tools, because it generates so many things, and at the first glance it looks correct, but yes, lots of the time on very specific things it can be completely incorrect. So
And
the
I think,
critical thinking is still important.
yes,
Very important.
I think it's both children and also adults, and also older people. Because with my parents, like, I was looking at an image online with my mom yesterday, and it was a gentleman who was holding what my mom's first instinct was a giant pumpkin. And pumpkins can be quite large, and they can take up your whole kind of upper body and holding them. But this was a strawberry. There's no such thing as a giant strawberry. And yet the Photoshop or the AI was really, really good. And so I had to kind of remind my mom, like, no, that's not real. There's no such thing.
And it's true, it's everybody anyway. It's not only young kids and students, it's like everybody needs to be aware, critical about, and very observant, of what they are looking at.
Yes. And I think we as a society have some issues with misinformation. And I think that in some ways, AI could exacerbate that, or it could be our opportunity to come back to the conversation of misinformation and say, how can we do this better?
Yes.
For sure. Well, I love this, and I love fashion, and I think fashion itself is such a uniting, universal theme, and how we also each have our own unique cultural expressions of fashion, and yet how we can appreciate other people's fashion. And I think there's a fine line between what they kind of refer to as cultural appropriation versus cultural appreciation. And when I was in Beijing, the ladies there had no problem selling me a classic silk dress, which I adore, and yet I want to wear that completely respectfully. And so I think there's those fine lines of like how we respect other people's fashion, and yet how we can integrate them into our own style respectfully.
Exactly. Yeah, completely agree with you on that. Yes.
All right. Well, I think that wraps us up for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us for DevFest 2023 collaboration. And again, reminder to check out the local DevFest near you. Look for the live events, day and date. Look for their hybrid events and other opportunities that you'll find online for learning, connecting, and collaborating.
Thank you so much, Philippa.
Thank you.